Today, Mr Justice Pepperell handed down his judgment relating to my illegitimate resuspension from the Labour Party on June the 28th. And it's a clear victory for justice and due process. I know there's been some confusion over the result. That's why I wanted to speak directly to you about what's happened over the past few months. But first, I'd like to thank my family and all those who very kindly supported me throughout this painful process. I'd especially like to thank everyone who generously donated to my legal crowdfunder. Without you, this victory today wouldn't have been possible. I never wanted to take legal action against my own party. I've been a proud and loyal Labour Party member for nearly 44 years. However, today's judgment has proven that the party's disciplinary procedures are unfair, unfit for purpose and subject to external manipulation by forces hostile to Jeremy Corbyn's leadership. On the 27th of February 2019, I was suspended from the Labour Party for allegedly bringing it into disrepute. I comprehensively rebutted those allegations and abided by the party's strict and punitive suspension conditions, one of which was to maintain complete confidentiality and silence over the process. But every step of the way, the party's bureaucracy has briefed against me in the media and didn't honour their own requirement of confidentiality, resulting in me being viciously smeared and abused with increasingly wild accusations, all while I was prevented from defending myself. This included repeatedly using private information about my case to curry favour with media outlets hostile to Jeremy Corbyn and our movement. The party bureaucracy's pattern of leaking was so obviously disrespectful that its lawyers were even asked for assurances in the High Court that these leaks would stop. I was only presented with an explanation of why I was suspended weeks after the suspension was announced. In April, I finally had a chance to give a comprehensive response to a series of absurd allegations against me. When this suspension and my evidence were considered by a panel of the party's National Executive Committee, that panel lifted my suspension, partly based on advice from an independent lawyer. As soon as my suspension was lifted, there followed 2 days of non-stop media outcry, whipped up by opponents of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership on the right wing of the Labour Party. I was then illegitimately resuspended 2 days later as the party capitulated in the face of media hysteria. The judgment itself is clear. It says it's not difficult to infer that the true reason for the decision was that NEC members were influenced by the ferocity of the outcry. That's why the earlier suspension was quashed, and the litany of ridiculous allegations presented as pretext for that suspension can no longer be pursued against me. The party bureaucracy has gone out of its way to pander to those who would be glad to see Labour's demise. They victimised hundreds of lifelong members, loyal supporters of Jeremy Corbyn and his leadership, and they've suspended and expelled many without due process. These McCarthyite tactics have resulted in decent party members being hounded out of their jobs and careers due to smears and innuendo, put inordinate stress on families, and put honest Labour members on the verge of bankruptcy. Some party activists have even been plunged into acute mental health crises as a result of the stress and anxiety caused by this witch hunt, to such an extent that on every suspension letter from the party there are now contact details for the Samaritans. It's untenable for Labour's bureaucracy to shroud itself in the anti-racist credentials that some of us earned by confronting fascists on the streets, while it systematically expels and suspends the most consistent and credible anti-racist activists. And we cannot credibly criticise the government for dismantling mental health services while our own party's disciplinary structures harasses Labour members for expressing legitimate political views. Party officials clearly knew they were heading for defeat in the High Court. Just 1 week prior to my court hearing and months into the legal process, they suspended me again, even though I was already suspended at the time, and I was going to court to have that suspension overturned. The new suspension was based on a series of preposterous allegations that I answered fully and swiftly. They wanted to use every loophole in the book to avoid justice. Because of this, and despite winning today, I'm currently suspended from the Labour Party. I know the behaviour of these officials will be a bitter disappointment to everyone who supported me in this case, and to party members more broadly. I'm outraged that membership subscriptions paid by loyal activists have been used on legal fees. And I'm outraged that I've had to resort to legal means to achieve justice. Today's result is a damning indictment of our party's internal disciplinary procedures, which require a total overhaul towards a fairer, more independent and more democratic system. My suspension must now be lifted. I'll be focusing my energies, as we all should, on winning the next general election, because a Corbyn-led Labour government could transform the lives of millions by bringing about an irreversible shift in the balance of wealth, power and income in our country. And finally, I want to reiterate my thanks and appreciation to all my supporters. You are living proof that unity is strength. With solidarity, we shall overcome. Thank you.